So it's February 3rd, 2014. Last night we witnessed Super Bowl blowout. Unfortunately, Peyton Manning and the Broncos lost, but Graham and I and Danielle had a good time watching. And we're going to continue a little bit and learn about some family history. So let's go back as far as you can remember on your side of the family and start telling us about your ancestry.
Okay. My grandparents were the Stapletons and the Vanderwaters. And genetically speaking, they were way ahead of the curve. They were entrepreneurial, they were smart, they were hardworking. My father's father built cars, he built race cars and won some races. Walter P. Chrysler wanted him to go in business with him, and my grandfather said no. And my father was in World War I, and the flying ace, I can't quite recall his name, wanted my father to help him establish Eastern Airlines, and my father said no. Eddie Rickenbacker. Then, so that was, and the Vanderwaters came over in 1658, which is a long time ago. They were Yankees for a long time. They were very frugal, hardworking, and very good businessmen. They knew the value of a dollar. Now on Steve's side, you know more about them really because of your grandpa, DeRigo, who came over by himself at 16, couldn't read, write, or speak English. In those days, you had to be sponsored. Andrew Aloisi's grandfather sponsored him, so those two families go way back, and we still know them. Andrew was Steve's lawyer for decades, and he just hosted a 100th birthday for his mother, which was wonderful. So that's Steve's. And then his mother, she was a Grasso. Her whole family came over. 7 children and mom and pop. Where they got the money for the boat fare, I'll never know. They came over en masse. And Grandma DeRigo ran the family store. And at 24, she met Grandpa. He asked her to marry him, and she said, I can't give you an answer right now. She wasn't dressed, she was working. I want an answer right now. And so she said yes. And she continued to run the store until she was 7 months pregnant. And then she didn't work anymore, and her father closed the store. He needed her so much. And I'll tell you right now, he was supported by Grandpa. Grandpa supported his in-laws from the time he had his first baby, and they covered it up. He kept thinking the interest kept growing, and he didn't have to work. He was a very, very gracious man. And that's why Steve is a very gracious man. So that's that side, and the Grossos, okay, and Andrew DeRigo. Those are your ancestors. You can be very proud of all of them.
Now, Andrew DeRigo, his brother came across with him as well.
8 years after Andrew was here, another 16-year-old came over, didn't read, write, or speak English. And I'm not quite sure about all of this. Matthew knows this better than I, but he ended up in California growing the broccoli rabe, which we have a patent on the seed, and a patent on the broccoli seed. And he was a very, very good farmer and a very, very, very good businessman. And so was his son, Andy. And Andy was the original Andy Boy because he was always in the fields. He was 4 years old. And that's how they got the name Andy Boy, the brand name, because of him. But these, I guess they're your great-great-grandparents, were singular people. Most of them were immigrants. They came to work. They were delighted to get here. They were producers. They didn't expect any handouts in any way. Grandpa DeRigo walked 5 miles to work, and he worked on a road gang. I mean, that's a lot of physical work. But he took the trolley car home. The trolley cost a nickel. So walking 5 miles to work to save a nickel. And every Sunday he spent that day changing his bed, cleaning his apartment, cooking for the week, shopping. He did all of those wifely things because he wasn't married. And he worked very, very hard. Now, I touched on something, a part of that yesterday about the engineer, didn't I? Yeah, okay. Now, Grandpa Stapleton, he came over 1854, he was 21. And he died at the age of 81, which was pretty old for those days.
And he came over from England?
Ireland.
From Ireland.
Yeah. And his wife was here, she was French. But Grandpa did a very nice thing. He bought 2 family plots in St. Mary's Cemetery in Flushing. There's enough room to bury 17 people. 72. You lose 6 because of the headstone. So whatever 6 is from 72. We only have about 20 in there. But if you are a descendant of Grandpa Stapleton, you are eligible to be buried there. So Steve is there, my parents are there, all that wonderful Stapleton family are there. I've always looked forward to being buried because I knew where I was going, and I was with that wonderful Stapleton family. They were a fabulous family. This came out of Steve's high school graduating class. He's here with the widow's peak.
Zoom in for a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was one of 345 people in his graduating class. When he went to kindergarten, he spoke only Italian. And as he grew along, he walked to school. Bob Kimball. They walked to kindergarten together. Their friendship started in kindergarten. He knew him all of his life. And as he got older in high school, he played doubles with Bob Kimball, was very good. If he saw girls coming, he'd cross the street because he was shy. He went to Dartmouth for 2 years, enlisted in the Navy. He learned to fly a plane solo. The Navy decided they didn't need flyers anymore, so they washed them all out. And Steve ended up the navigation officer on a destroyer escort. And of course, being the mature guy he was, he got the privilege of decommissioning the ship. So he was another month in the Navy. Then he went back to Dartmouth and finished up. And he came to New York on July 5th, 1948, and opened up Dorigo in New York. His father lent him $50,000, which I have no idea what that's worth today. He paid it all back. The picture of the firm was in Life magazine because it was the busiest corner in the market. He was the new kid on the block. And he wondered how you got to get on the board. And so you just volunteer. Steve was the only college graduate on in that whole market scene in those days. And exactly 55 years later to the day, Steve finished 55 years, and then he died. And he was lucky he died at home in his own bedroom, which I'm very happy about. So that was Steve.
So he was a intelligent man starting out when he was young and in high school,
he was voted most likely to succeed out of that huge class.
So they voted well.
He was known as a straight arrow. And yes, Steve always, some lovely Japanese man who was a grower in Colorado. Steve is a legend in his own time. A really lovely thing to say. So that's lovely Steve.
So
and now what else should we talk about?
Tell me how you guys met.
Oh, well, I got through my college roommate, who I knew for 70 years before she died. Mim had this wonderful job.
And those are her shoes, correct?
I have her shoes on. She just died a year ago. But Mim, this job paid $3,600, and my first year teaching I made $1,800. Plus it paid, I think, 8 cents a gallon on her car, and they paid for your telephone, and you had the summer off. It was a fabulous job. So I got the job in the New York area. I worked Brooklyn, mostly Brooklyn. We had sponsors. We advertised Holland Rusk, made by Nabisco, Fisher Bread, Planters peanut butter. I had 2 cooks, and we would go to different churches. We would prepare the luncheon, and the church women would set the table, serve the luncheon, clean up afterwards, and they sold tickets. They made the money on the luncheon, and we advertised to the luncheon guests. And I had that job for 3 years. So, there was a movie put out by Chiquita Banana, and the man I called, the first one didn't answer. No answering service in those days. The second one answered, and he knew of the Andy Boy film about growing broccoli. And let's see. Anyway, Wes Euler was Steve's sales promotion man. Steve was always ahead of the curve with doing these extra things, the advertising, the sales promotion. He was entrepreneurial. So Wes Euler came out and saw the program, and he liked it. And so he said, Steve should come out and see it. So my sister said, Mary, you can't wear that black suit. So she let me her dusty pink suit. And Steve came, and he was late. He said, first thing out of his mouth to me was, I'm sorry, I'm late. I said, it doesn't matter, it's okay. So he saw the program, and he decided that he would advertise with me. That's how we met. I had the job 3 years. The last year was I advertised for Andy Boy, and then we were married.
How did he ask you to marry him?
He never asked. We just talked about getting married. He never really proposed.
It was just a given after a certain time. You both had the
And
same ideas.
the spring I met him, my sister and I and brother, we drove across the country. I was gone all summer. Soon after I met him, got back, and then we really started to court in the fall. So we came up to the farm where I lived, and everything was hunky-dory. But then he made the mistake of coming up in the winter, and he slept in that ice-cold bedroom, and he said, this is an uncivilized house. And I said, well, I've lived here for 10 years. Oh, God, it was cold. Ooh. You get in that icy cold bed. It had a metal spring. The mattress is this thick. Oh, it was, you just spent the whole night cold.
But your parents approved of him?
Oh, God, yes. Who wouldn't approve of him? I mean, come on.
Tell us about Steve meeting them for the first time. Did we discuss that on the earlier one? When Steve met your parents for the first time?
He had them come down to New York. He took them out to dinner at this very famous fish house, and I cannot quite remember the name of it. It's no longer there. And he took the 4 of us went to see South Pacific with the original cat. Ainsley Pinsa was his name, and Mary Martin. It was a gorgeous show. Gorgeous. There was nothing cheap about Steve Dorigo.
And that was 1954?
No, 1950. We were married in 51.
1950, okay.
We met in 50 and married in 51. So there was just a small window there where maybe 14, 15 months went by, yeah. Well, see, I had supported myself for 6 years after college. I was 25 years old. I was ready to get married. He had been 3 years in the Navy, through college, had run his business for 3 years. Steve always was mature. He was ready to get married. And in those days, you got married. And so that followed. And times were kinder to girls then, much kinder. Now I don't think it's so kind. But I'm another generation. Anything else?
So then tell us, so you were married, and tell us where you lived.
Tell us about that first apartment.
Oh my God, that first apartment. It was on Horace Harding Boulevard, which was 4 lanes and busy. It was a 2-story building. It had 3 units, so it's 3 and 3. The corner was Henry's Bar and Grill. And the location was between hospitals. And not a night went by but what some ambulance didn't go screaming by. Then in the middle unit, directly under us, was Johnny Brusca's He was a jobber, and he bought from Steve in the market, and the check was always in the mail. He was one of those. Then the other corner, the sanitation department. The bottom floor was going 24/7, with Henry's adding the excitement, and then the police would come once in a while because they'd have a fight in Henry's. It was, a bore. Then on the second floor were the 6 apartments, and we had the middle one, flat roof. I remember when Patty came home, her bassinet had a little thermometer. That apartment was 98 degrees, and 3 of us were living there. 98 degrees. It was awful. And that's how we started out in that apartment. And we ended up on Half Moon Lane. Patty was 6 months old. We had her July 27, and a couple of weeks later we celebrated our first anniversary. And then when Patty was 6 months old, we moved into Irvington. The house was empty. She had a crib. We had a box spring and mattress on 2x4. We had a borrowed table and 4 chairs in the kitchen, and we had a washing machine. That was it. No paint, no paper, no carpeting. We had plywood floors. And from there, there's only one way to go. It took us 17 years to furnish that house. And it took us, the mortgage was a 20-year mortgage, 4%, which was very good because he was a GI and he got a 4% mortgage. But Steve, he was 27 years old, and he went down to the bank and got that mortgage. He always was able to do these things. And he was mature beyond his years. Very much so. I never had a moment's worry with Steve Drury, though. I never did. Not a minute's worry. Fabulous man. What else?
So you said that Patty was 6 months old when you moved in.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about your first pregnancy and how that went.
Beautifully. I had no trouble having 6 babies in 7 years. And I had a good OB. We won a good doctor. And I had a placid life, really. I didn't have any major worries. I had a wonderful husband. I didn't have anything to dust. And oh no, it was wonderful. And then on the street there were 2 families right next to us who also were the same age group, same children. So we grew up together. And Half Moon is a dead end. It was such a lovely place to raise children. I'm still there after 61 years. I don't know of anybody else who's in their original home. I think I'm the only one.
And when did you plant the Pachysandra?
Many years. That was a long-term project. And now I have nothing to do outside. It's just sheer ground cover.
The wood chips you do.
Hmm?
The wood chips you do.
The wood chip path, I do that every other year.
Mm-hmm.
That's my pro bono. And the saved beech tree. Judy Dolan, my Alzheimer friend, we saved this beech tree. We like to think we did. But it had 4 big trees growing on the south side of it, and vines, climbing up and pulling it down. It's the terrorist of the vine family. So we kept working on it, and Kevin was a huge help.
Mm-hmm.
He helped with the heavy work. And that tree looks magnificent now. But whoever buys my house, he's got the 2 jobs, the saved beech tree and the wood chip path. They have to keep doing these 2 projects. I'm going to have them sign a contract.
Tell us about meeting all of your friends. You've met so many people on Half Moon Lane.
Well, you meet them walking to the village. They're acquaintances. They're not friends. They're acquaintances.
Cinderella, I think you met
Oh,
her.
well, she was in the apartments. We met down by the train. And she said to me, "Hello, little boy," to Andy. I knew right away she was Irish and Catholic educated. We are still friends. And Steve and Michael Cinderella were great friends. They came down here every year. They saw that we got to Europe, to Paris, and to Italy. It was wonderful.
You traveled internationally with them.
Yes. And Michael used to travel over there on his business. He was the head of the wine department with somebody or other. He knew his way around, and he could speak Italian. It was wonderful.
What was your favorite international trip you took? with them?
I would say Italy. We had a wonderful time in Italy. We did. We did. And Colleen and I, we had babies together. Judy Dolan and I had babies. The three of us all had babies together down through the decades. We'd all be pregnant at the same time. We had a wonderful time. We really did. Anything else?
I think that's good for now.
I think that's good for now.
Okay.
We'll catch up again soon.
Ta-ta for now.